Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Maryland lawmakers promise energy relief, but are they really just shifting cost while expanding government control? Montgomery County's outgoing executive breaks his no tax increase pledge again with a new property tax hike. And in Rockville, a political showdown over the unmasked ICE bill while police departments struggle to recruit and retain officers. We'll ask, are these policies governing or grandstanding? And our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former county council member and founder of SkillSmart, Mike Knapp, and secretary of the Maryland Republican Party, Mark Uncapher. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Welcome to 21 This Week. A lot to cover today. Maryland leaders are promoting a new energy package, including rebates of $150 per household, while energy costs continue to rise. Supporters say it provides relief. Critics say it's short-term policies that will drive long-term costs. The bill reduces surcharges now, but scales back energy efficiency programs and may increase future demands and costs. Mark, this bill offers a whopping $150 rebate, but it's funded by shifting costs, cutting efficiency programs, and potentially raising long-term energy demand. Is this relief, or is it a political rebate that masks a structural broken energy policy?
Well, it masks a structural program that doesn't make a lot of sense. And the real challenge is that we have not built enough capacity going forward. And we'll talk about that later on. And what we're doing is kind of cannibalizing this fund that's been created as part of the effort to reach net zero that has escalated the costs for Maryland and energy use.
Well, a lot of states are moving that deadline for net zero from 35 to 40 and even outward. Is there any consideration in Maryland to do that?
Not really. And it's interesting given the thrust of policies nationally, it's really kind of hard not to eventually make that recognition that we're not going to achieve it. But I think that's really one of the that's one of the challenges for Maryland energy policy is the reluctance to acknowledge that fact.
So, Mike, families are seeing a bill spike from $100 to $500 a month, and while you can't blame the legislature for everything, isn't some immediate relief, even if imperfect, better than doing nothing while people struggle?
I think it is, but you've actually got to make that be consequential relief. I'm among those folks. My electric bill last month was $1,150. So if you give me the $150 rebate, I get back down to $1,000, which is still $500 more than I paid this time last year. So I think that if you're going to do something, you've got to do it. You've got to make it real, and you've got to. But more importantly, I think to Mark's point, you've got to make it lasting. And I think where we are right now, and it does. I mean, whether it's the Maryland legislature, the U.S. Congress, and others, we're creating nice feel-good type of one-time fixes that are really good sound bites, but we're not really addressing the core issues that need to get addressed. And we've got to come up with ways to be sustainable. We've got to come up with ways to have lasting policy changes. And we don't have the political will, I think, in most places to be able to address those issues head on.
Well, I guess that really goes to a broader question, and which is, is there enough expertise in the legislature to really address energy policy? I mean, if you have advocates on one side or the other, there's no commonality. Is where are we going to find, some median discussion about the amount of electrical load that we need to generate and build? My goodness, we talk about, the data centers endlessly. We need more electrical capacity. Where is I mean, do we have to reach a crisis before we meet in the middle, I guess is the question. Mark, for you.
Well, I was going to say, let me give you a two-word answer if I can, and that's natural gas. What we have not done, because of the effort to get rid of fossil fuels, we haven't acknowledged the role that natural gas can have, obviously replacing coal, which allows for CO2 reduction, but also to provide a cheap, affordable, dispatchable, with the dispatchable meaning it's available on demand, electric power. And as we phased out production in Maryland, we've eliminated the opportunity to have gas power gas-fired plants, which would have addressed the issues that we're talking about.
So, Mike, Maryland and New York were one of the two states that banned fracking along the Marcellus Shale line, and Pennsylvania did not, and has seen very cheap energy coming from that sector of Marcellus Shale, the fracking there. Should Maryland reconsider the program and allow fracking in Western Maryland?
I mean, as again, we often come up with these as kind of binary choices. I don't think it's this or nothing else. I think that, as we've often said here, the reality is there is no single solution, and we need to be at a point where we're looking at all of those options and putting all of those alternatives on the table, and we're just not doing that. And so, is that a piece that we should look at? Yes, it is. Does that solve the problem? No, it doesn't. And so, how do we begin to bring those elements together? To your point, prior to us kind of bottoming out, and we're kind of and our trajectory right now is towards the bottoming out before we ever get to have the real conversation. And we're doing that on like 17 different issues at the same time.
So, exit question for both of you. Since this is, Wes Moore's proposal of $150, is he going to get any political bump from this? Does this play at all with the voters? Mark, you first, then Mike.
Well, this has
30
really
seconds.
resonated. The cost of electric power has really resonated with voters, and it's going to be a very significant issue this year.
Mike.
No, I don't think you do. I mean, I think I appreciate the notion that people are trying to do something, but to try and get accolades for $150 when you're seeing, 3 times that much in an energy bill in a given month, it's not going to, I don't think it's really going to get you much of anything.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Elections are coming up. We got primaries coming up in a couple months. Issue 2, Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich is proposing a 6% property tax increase to fund schools. This would cost the median homeowner about $423 more per year, and it comes after years of promises to avoid tax increases and a history of proposed tax increases. Mike Elrich campaigned years and years ago, seems like forever ago, on a promise to restructure government and avoid tax increases, but he's repeatedly proposed them. Is this a failure of leadership, or is this just, the way he rolls?
Yes and yes.
We're giving you 2-word
Um,
answers today, Casey.
Not good. Not good for TV, guys. We,
so-
we need you to
sorry.
opine.
No, it's yes. I think it's a the county executive talked about restructuring government, and in fact has done nothing but add more jobs during a time, add more jobs and increase the compensation for those folks in those jobs by significant amounts, so that we're at a 9 or 10% annual compensation increase at a time when our county's revenue are increasing at about 2.5%. So we've set up a completely unsustainable situation, and rather than actually address the underlying situation, the county executive's objective is to propose his 6th tax increase in the 8 years he's been here. And so I think that shows to both, one, our inability as county government to address the underlying issue of what structure do we need to deliver the services that we want to provide to our residents, and two, the inability to actually not want to raise taxes on our residents.
So, Mark, of course, the default reason for any tax increase, it's all about the children, and the county executive argues this is about investing in education, with MCPS requesting billions in funding, while the school population declines. Is this a necessary investment, or does the county have spending problems it just refuses to address?
Well, we have a broader issue, I think, in the state, which is that the mandates of the blueprint are not producing the results that were anticipated. And so there's a little like the energy is another issue where we have some policies on autopilot that really need a careful rethink. We're not seeing results from Blueprint, and that's been what's been driving up education costs, certainly in our county and elsewhere. But I would observe that we've kind of seen this movie before with Mark Elric, where he asks for large tax increases, and then the council cuts it back, and they tell us what a great job they did at being economical and non-taxing, when in fact you just got a tax increase. So we'll see if that plays out yet again.
Well, that segues perfectly to what I wanted to ask Mike, which is, we've got several members of the county council running for county executive. Are they going to support a tax increase of any kind? And frankly, will the county council do just what Mark said, which is, cut it back and say and declare victory?
Well, if past is prologue, then yes, I'll do exactly that because that's typically how the county council operates. Is we will reduce the increase by some amount and claim victory, and most people won't have paid attention and realize what just happened. I think to your first part of the question, Andrew Friedson has come out, I think, very vociferously opposed. Will Jawando actually came out before the county executive even proposed a rate increase and said he was already for it. And I think Evan has tried to straddle the line in between to say, I don't think we should do it, but we'll need to look
Oh,
at it.
what the heck?
So I think they've all I've tried to stake out some place that's different from the other.
So, Mark, obviously, you're in the wrong party to answer this question, but
Right.
I mean, is there any going to be any blowback in the primaries on this?
Well, I don't know about the primaries, but I will say, so I'm not the one to ask on that. On the other hand, I would look at the reaction that we're seeing around the state, but also in Montgomery County to the electricity bills. And there is a tipping point in which these cost of living issues become politically significant.
Well, I mean, that's always the case. You get to a point of crisis. So, Mike, do you think this is going to any blowback is going to have legs? I mean, you talk about about people responding to a crisis. They get to a point where they're fed up, and as you said, if they don't know what's really there until later, will that have an impact?
I think it will. I mean, I think to Mark's point, I think affordability continues to be an increasing issue, and that's a real challenge that we have. And so I think there will be blowback this year. I think this is going to be real and is going to have an impact in the primaries.
All right. So the exit question is: since Mark Elridge is running for county council at large, will this hurt him? Mark, you first.
Probably not, because we're talking about 20% that comes out and votes, and he obviously needs a certain percentage of that. So our primary elections on both parties, frankly, are focused on really hardcore voters on one side or the other.
Mike, you get to wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I don't think it'll have an impact on him. He's got his core set of voters. He's one of four folks in an at-large race, and so I think he comes through, unfortunately, and will continue to do what he does.
Well, thank you. What positive thoughts. When we return, questions are being raised about whether the county is focused on the right priorities, particularly when it comes to public safety and law enforcement. Stay tuned. And welcome back. A controversial unmasked ICE bill is moving through the council, targeting federal immigration enforcement. But the process has become highly contentious, with accusations of political grandstanding and internal conflict on the council. And at the same time, the Montgomery County police staffing is down 16% since 2019. Vacancies are rising and overtime costs are exploding, indicating a structural shortage. Mike, the headline may be the unmasked ICE bill, but the real story this week is what's happening inside the county council. Councilman Will Jawando tried to force a vote using a rare procedural move, overriding the normal committee process, and it blew up on him. His colleagues, including co-sponsors, pushed back hard. The motion failed 7-4, and the debate turned personal. All this over a bill that may be preempted by the state or even later found to be unconstitutional. So the question is, what is it really about?
It's about having the issue. And so it was really about trying to have some way to differentiate yourself and be able to try and do something that appears as though you're trying to address the progressive wing of the party. And that was the thing. And so if we put this off until after the state legislature had already acted, then potentially Will loses this issue. And so Will didn't want to lose this issue, so he tried to force it to a head. And while on the vote perspective, it looks as though he lost from a controversy and from a public perception perspective, it looks like he was trying to take a firm stand, and which I think is really unfortunate because I think this is an important issue, and I think it should be something that we try to address, but it's something that we collectively need to work on, and the state is already going down this road, and I think that the council and the chair of that committee, Sidney Katz, had scheduled a work session for right after the legislature would have departed Annapolis, which would have given the ability to take a look at this bill in the context of whatever the state had done. And I think it's really unfortunate where they got to. But I think from Will's perspective, he got exactly what he needed, which was the ability to have headlines and show that he was trying to do something, even though he really was just trying to get the issue.
Okay, so Mark, this looks like it wasn't a policy dispute. There was a breakdown in how the council operates. You had members of the same party, even co-sponsors, angry about the tactics. So, ultimately, what does it say about the leadership and governments in the county council right now?
Well, let me say, I think Mike was right on. It was a kind of a virtual signaling exercise by a candidate who is appealing to a base, and obviously with multiple candidates in the county executive race, uh, finding a lane that is that much more attractive is going to let him stand out, and I think that's precisely what happened here. It clearly the legislature is going to do something, and he wanted to get in ahead of that.
Who are the four that voted, I guess, in favor of support? Was Friedson one of those guys?
I think Andrew did vote in favor of it. So I think it was Andrew, Kristen Mank, Lorianne Sales, and Will were the four.
So Glass voted against it, I would presume.
Yeah, and again, I think that it's a hard one to kind of say whose side. I think the council the council as a whole is supportive of this legislation, and I think that was the point that was lost in all of this because he wanted to try and somehow divide everyone and see we're on one side or the other. And I don't believe that's true. I think that the council said, to your point at the very beginning, if the state's going to do something, it preempts us. We think it's an important issue. Let's actually make a decision that's based on what the context of at the right time is and take the right action. And I think that's unanimous among the council members. And so to kind of go down this road, I think is really unfortunate because it appeared to be divisive in a place that they're not divided at all.
Huh. You know, um, Adam Pagnucco has been writing a series of articles on fundraising by the county council candidates. I mean, does that play into this at all? I mean, just for fundraising purposes, these actions are being done. And who do you think has the lead right now in the primary? Mike, I'll go to you first, then Mark.
Please.
No, I think it will. I think it's just a matter of time. You saw that Evan had come out with a couple things. He did a data center task force, and he had the ICE detention center and private facilities legislation that I don't think was actually going to ever happen in Montgomery County. But he did that and has used that in kind of his mailers. I expect that you will see Will put this out from fundraising in short order. When you look at the overall numbers, Andrew has raised more money than the two of them significantly. Even with matching funds. As far as kind of who's leading, I've heard there's a little bit of polling out there at this point, and I think that there is an element that Will has a bit of a lead, but candidly, we're just getting to a point I think residents are starting to even pay attention or acknowledge that this is even an election year, and so anybody claiming that they have a lead right now, I think it's it's being up by 5 in the first quarter and claiming victory, and I don't think anybody's there yet.
Well, but as we've seen in other disputed primaries, a solid core minority can carry the day on for split
Mhm.
voting. And Mark, do you have any sense about what's going on?
Well, I was going to say, and these are very hard because of those issues that you just described. These are very hard issues to poll because you don't know precisely who's coming in. You can surmise the really hardcore voters, but Sometimes there's some additional issues that will bring in that will resonate, and it's also difficult when essentially you have a three-way race. The dynamic can shift as the perception as to who the two that are the dominant candidates may shift. So it's kind of early days.
Well, does Jawando have, the Mark Elric supporters behind him in this race? I mean, I'm kind of curious as to how everybody stacks up.
He's trying to position himself for that, and you'll see that he, from the very beginning, I mean, Mark came to his campaign kickoff, for this, and I think he's tried to court that population, and so, I think there's a percentage of that that's probably with him. Mark's base is a very unique amalgamation of voters in Montgomery County and cultivated over, 30 years of kind of NIMBYism,
Right.
of progressivism, a variety of different things, kind of the no growthers. And so to kind of replicate that and be able to get those coattails is a hard one to get to. That's it. And so I think will get some of the progressive side of that. I don't know that he gets the rest of it. And I think that's
Uh-huh.
kind of
Uh-huh.
why a lot
So
of
there
this
may be a
positioning is
split
out there
there.
right now.
And Andrew obviously is looking for the business type who may have voted for Blair the last time.
He's looking for centrist Democrats.
Hmm.
I don't think he'd want to just be business. I think he'd want to say, centrist common sense Democrats would be the way he'd position it.
Okay. Well, we have one
Well,
more topic I
and I
want to
think to that,
go ahead, Mike.
so go ahead.
Finish your
No,
thought.
I was going to say, and I think to that end, it's interesting to see where the three of them have put in legislation. I think Evan and Will have both put in legislation that is more signaling and not necessarily as concrete. Where I think Andrew, they just passed a piece of legislation where really try to incentivize new industrial development in the biohealth sector and also new multi-use development, and try to accelerate those types of developments. And I think recognizing that we don't have job growth or housing growth, and so let's try to do some substantive things there. And so I
Okay.
think you're seeing kind of lines being drawn in that perspective as well.
All right, so we got one more topic to talk about, and I was struck by the fact that the police chief testified last week again about the lack of of recruitment, how understaffed we are in Montgomery County. We talked about this 9 months ago, I think, and I was struck by the reporting, which always focuses on is there enough money being paid in salaries, or is there enough money being paid in bonuses, but some of this, comes down to whether or not if you're a young officer, Mark, looking at Montgomery County and you see years of criticism from police and policy, and you know that the federal government's obviously hiring a lot of cops these days, why would you come to Montgomery County?
That is certainly an issue, but I'd also point to housing costs in Montgomery County. If you're law enforcement, you're going to be stretched to be able to live in the county, and as a result, other jurisdictions that perhaps have more housing opportunities are going to be attractive. So, I don't disagree with you, but I also think we have some other cost of living issues that are unique to Montgomery County.
Okay, and Mike, what's your sense of this? I mean, do you think it's just a matter of perception that Montgomery County is unfriendly to police and they don't want to be here, or as Mark is saying, you got to pay them because it's an expensive place to live? Real quick.
I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of both. I mean, as we've said here before, I don't think you've heard the county executive really speak in support of the police. I mean, he recognizes that we need law enforcement, but he hasn't really said anything that this is our department. We're proud of them. And I think the council has typically gone after them. And I don't think there's been clarity as to what we expect the role of police to be. And so, if in an ever-changing landscape, I think it's hard to be a police officer in Montgomery County, but I also think the costs are very challenging. Most of our police officers don't live in the county right now anyway. And so I think the reality is that it only gets harder and harder as costs continue to increase to live here.
Well, I think the signaling from the council and the chief and the county executive over the last 6 years has been very
Mhm.
damaging to what was once a really stellar police force. And I don't know. You can't. I don't think you can run a government where you criticize the police on Monday and wonder why on Tuesday they're not doing the job. When we come back from this short break, parting shots.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We have this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure,
Pure love.
love.
And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Mark Uncapher.
Well, let me speak on behalf of two upstate New York boys, Mike and I. One of the glories of being here in Washington is the spring blossom, and we have cherry blossom season coming up. The peak time is expected in about another week to 10 days. So for all of you who take it for granted, don't. It's really a wonderful sight to see.
Thank you. That's great. It's cherry blossoms are always the best time of the year. Mike Knapp, your parting shot.
Well, as it works out, cherry blossoms and basketball tend to run in the same schedule, and so I'm in upstate New York for the NCAA tournament. And one of the things that struck me as I was watching people file into the stadium or the arena last evening is there aren't many things left in our country right now where people just kind of come together and have a good time. And you're not for one side or the other. Most people are there. We watched 4 games yesterday, and it was just there to enjoy each other, have a good time, watch basketball, and just hope you could see a good game. And it was just nice to see people kind of enjoying each other without any of the other rancor. And so basketball and cherry blossoms is a good time of year.
Absolutely. And nothing is better than March Madness and seeing how many people have had their brackets blown up by by VCU and High Point. My goodness, what an upset. All right. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mike, for sacrificing some of your vacation time to be with us today. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.